The world fell silent with the news. Richard Chamberlain, the dashing icon of Hollywood's golden era, known by many as the Prince of Romance, had passed away. The funeral was not just a ceremony, it was a farewell to a generation of grace, elegance, and quiet strength, the kind that does not come around often, the kind that lives forever on screen, but eventually fades from the stage of life. This is the story of Richard Chamberlain's funeral, who was there, what was said, and why his legacy means so much more than just television ratings and box office numbers. This was about a man who captivated the world, yet remained a mystery in his own right. This was about how Hollywood mourns a true legend, the announcement that shocked fans. Around the world, on the morning of his death, social media lit up like a flare in the night. Headlines from Los Angeles to London read one simple line: Richard Chamberlain, dead at 91. Though age had slowly quieted his public presence, no one was truly ready. Chamberlain had always seemed ageless, timeless. That smooth voice, the noble posture, the kind eyes that could say 1,000 things in silence. He had become something more than just an actor. He was a living relic of a romantic era, a man who moved through the 20th century like a poem in motion. Fans flocked to online forums, posting scenes from The Thornbirds, Shogun, and his breakthrough role in Dr. Kildare. The loss felt personal, because Richard Chamberlain had made you believe. In love, in heartbreak, in the impossible. A private ceremony. With a global reach, the funeral took place just outside Los Angeles, in a serene hillside chapel surrounded by cypress trees and soft ocean winds. It was not flashy. There were no red carpets or press photographers. Just quiet reverence. Chamberlain had made it clear in his will. He wanted a private ceremony, not a media circus. He did not want his farewell to be about fame. He wanted it to be about peace, grace, and closure. Still, despite the exclusivity, the ripple effect of his passing stretched across the globe. Millions watched the live stream feed posted by his publicist a few hours after the ceremony. Tributes poured in from France, Japan, Australia, and the UK, countries where his works had aired for decades. Inside that chapel, however, was a moment, frozen in time. The people who knew the real Richard, not the icon, but the man, gathered with tear-streaked faces, holding hands, remembering the soul beneath the spotlight. The casket and setting, a quiet symbolism. His casket was simple. Polished oak, no embellishments, just a small golden cross resting at the center, draped with a soft white cloth and a bouquet of lilies, his favorite flower. The interior of the chapel was lit by candlelight, not for effect, but for authenticity. This was not a production, it was a farewell. A piano gently played in the background. Chamberlain loved classical music. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata echoed through the hall, haunting and beautiful. At the front of the altar stood a large black-and-white photograph. Richard Chamberlain in his mid-30s, smiling in a way only he could. Soft, honest, and unguarded. It was hard not to cry, even for the most stoic faces in the room, who attended. A list of legends and loved ones, the pews were lined with a blend of generations. Some old Hollywood royalty, some newer stars who had been mentored or inspired by Chamberlain. Jane Seymour sat quietly in the second row, clutching a handkerchief. The two had shared the screen, but more than that, a friendship that lasted over 40 years. Actor Hugh Jackman, who once said Chamberlain paved the way for actors to bring both strength and vulnerability to leading roles, flew in from New York. Patrick Stewart sent a heartfelt video tribute that played during the memorial segment, thanking Chamberlain for daring to be poetic in an industry obsessed with bravado. His longtime partner, Martin Rabbit, was there too, dignified, composed, and heartbreakingly silent. They had shared decades together, through the rise of Chamberlain's fame, through the battles with identity, through love that outlasted public opinion, eulogies that brought the room to tears. The first eulogy was given by Chamberlain's nephew, Mark, who spoke softly but with power. Uncle Richard never wanted attention. He just wanted beauty in the world, on stage, on screen, and in life. Then came Jane Seymour. When we worked on the Thornbirds, I was intimidated. He had this aura, this magnetism, but off camera he was tender, nurturing, almost shy. He did not want to dominate. He wanted to uplift. The final eulogy came from his partner, Martin. I spent more years with Richard than I have spent with anyone. He was gentle in a world that rewards aggression. He listened when others yelled. He wrote poetry on hotel napkins, and he never stopped dreaming, even in his 80s. The music, a soundtrack to a legacy. 3 songs played during the service, each one chosen by Chamberlain himself. 1, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, because he said it reminded him of hope. 2, Ave Maria, because it reminded him of his mother. 3, Send in the Clowns, because he always felt a quiet sadness in show business, even when he smiled on stage. There was not a dry eye in the house. A career that defined eras, remembered at the funeral. While the funeral was deeply personal, it did not ignore his legendary career. A short film montage was played after the eulogies, scenes from Dr. Kildare, The Thornbirds, Shogun, and The Count of Monte Cristo. Each clip reminded everyone in that chapel that this wasn't just a man. They were saying goodbye to a cultural pillar. A man who had helped shape modern television. A man who had taken romantic drama and given it soul. The struggles he faced. Quietly honored. It would have been easy to gloss over the more difficult parts of Chamberlain's life, but they didn't. Few close friends mentioned his internal battles. The struggle of being a closeted gay man during the 1960s and 70s. The loneliness. The masks he had to wear, but instead of bitterness, there was reverence. He bore it all with grace, said one speaker. And when he finally stepped into the light, he gave countless others the courage to do the same. A private burial. Under a tree. He planted himself. After the ceremony, a small group traveled to his estate in Maui, Hawaii, where Chamberlain had spent much of his later life. There, beneath a tree he had planted 30 years earlier, he was laid to rest. No media, no spectacle. Just birdsong, ocean wind, and the sound of one violin playing in the distance. His grave bears no grand statue, just a plaque that reads, Richard Chamberlain, actor, poet, dreamer, beloved. Global tributes from fans and celebrities around the sea. World tributes poured in. On social media, actors posted clips of his greatest roles with the caption, Thank you, Richard. Broadway theaters dimmed their lights for a full minute. Barbra Streisand, in a rare tweet, said, He made romance noble again, a gentle star in a loud world. Even international leaders chimed in. The French Minister of Culture called him a bridge between Hollywood and the world. Legacy beyond the screen at the funeral, one theme repeated often. Chamberlain's legacy wasn't just about acting. He was a quiet philanthropist, donating to youth arts programs, theater scholarships, and LGBTQ organizations in secret for decades. He mentored young actors, wrote books, gave lectures about Shakespeare. He believed in storytelling, not as fame, but as healing. He was the kind of man who sent handwritten thank you notes, the kind who brought a book to a dinner party instead of wine. He lived simply, but left deeply. The final goodbye, a candle. For every soul he touched as the ceremony ended, each guest was invited to light a candle. Not for Richard, but for what he gave them. One by one, the chapel filled with soft glows, each flame a story, a moment, a memory. There were no fireworks, No speeches. Just light. The voice of a legend. The final moment played out. A surprise recording was played. Richard Chamberlain's voice, reading a passage from one of his favorite poems by Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart. Try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms, like books written in a foreign tongue. The chapel stood still. Richard Chamberlain had given his final performance, not as an actor, but as himself, and the world listened. The legacy continues. He's gone, yes. But Richard Chamberlain is not buried in the ground. Not really. He lives in the longing looks of old romantic films, in the courage of actors who step forward because he did it first, in the scripts he rewrote, the norms he challenged, the beauty he demanded. In a world that often forgets its poets, Chamberlain remains. Because when a man devotes his life to love, art, and truth, he never really dies. He just exits the stage, while the curtain remains OP.